And so I'm glad that we are all here gathered again today to share some precious Buddha Dharma, and not to say that such practice is either the highest or the lowest or in between or here or thereabout, but it's, how to say, it's meaningful, it's interesting. I wouldn't say it's good, I wouldn't say it's bad. It's just very meaningful, and it can really touch our hearts. It can transcend all kinds of boundaries, no matter what kind of backgrounds we come from, that it can transcend all of those boundaries. And so it's the very practice that we have been doing for years and years in our brief time, in this lifetime. But beyond that, we have been doing this practice for centuries and millennia and beyond that. And such precious teaching is available to us in our busy time, and so therefore I think it's really a moment to celebrate and a moment to cherish this, moment to remind ourselves of this preciousness of this teaching. Of course, this comes in the form of what is known as Abhisheka or Jenang or Wang, which are terms for this style, method that we have become accustomed to. And it's a very unique way, one could say it's a very direct way of getting in touch with whether we call it the reality or the universe or enlightenment or emptiness, whatever we call it. It's a direct way of getting in touch with it. And as I said yesterday, how to say, it's instantaneous or spontaneous or direct. And we should not be too confused with this practice. Of course, although most of us have been doing this practice for years, for some of us we may be doing this for the first time, but nevertheless we should not get confused, we should not get mix this practice with too much of supernatural things. It's actually very, very grounding. It's very direct. That's what it is. If you want to, of course, develop supernatural abilities, of course, such means are always available, even now. If you want to float in the air, if you want to sort of drill through a mountain, all of those methods are available, not just in a sort of a physical way, but if you want to develop that kind of siddhi, let's say, it's possible. But that's not really what we're after, actually. Although that aspect of developing the siddhi comes with these practices, for sure. And there are, as I said yesterday, for us to sometimes, if we are too distracted, if we are too confused, then there are these aspects of the siddhi where it can help us sort of dispel that charm, let's say. And that is there, and every now and then, whenever that's necessary, the blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they manifest in such a way, and it does happen. But that's not everything, of course. And so therefore, this is very important for us to know, keep it in our heart, because what we are really trying to achieve here through this method called initiation, or method of receiving instructions, method of receiving oral transmission, then finally the initiation, these three steps or these three doors. excuse me, are basically, if you simplify it, a means, particularly a skillful means, to help us understand or help us realize what kind of qualities we have, what kind of essence we have, what kind of heart we have. That's all it is at the end. And so therefore, if you think in that way, actually it should give us a lot of hope, a lot of strength. Because if we just focus on the supernatural abilities, then it creates a bit of a gap between ourselves in terms of who has more merit, who has more wisdom, who has more realization, who can float in the air better, you know. I can fly, but the other fellow is probably aerodynamically not that well evolved, you know. So things like that can come into the context. So therefore, that's not the point. And this is something very important for us to keep in mind. So the heart that we are trying to get in touch with is none other than what we call, or what is commonly known as compassion, loving kindness, and ultimately not the perfected aspect, but the fully awakened aspect of the compassion, which is known as the body or the enlightened nature. That's the heart. That's what we are trying to achieve. And as I said yesterday, there is no harm to be a little impressed every now and then. And so therefore, such titles are given, such as, because when we say initiation or empowerment, it's a very rich word. It's quite impressive, you know. But at the end of the day, that initiation can be summed into a slap. So therefore, it may not be as extraordinary as we think. That's one interesting word to catch. As important as we think, you know, think. Because it's nothing to do with our thoughts, it's nothing to do with words, actually, the actual initiation. It can happen at any given moment. However, of course, since we are quite used to words every now and then we take this cue, but the actual initiation can come at any given moment. And when it happens, it's beautiful. It's really awe-inspiring. It can move us. It can give us the courage to celebrate any occasion, no matter how tragic they may be, no matter how unforgiving it may be, that it will help us to transcend and go beyond all of those boundaries. And so therefore, now, of course, I will do the usual thing, which is to first of all meditate myself. So basically it's like this podium is somewhat like a zoo, where you see somebody doing his or her thing, and you just happen to be at the right time, at the right place to observe that. And be it, of course, in close proximity like this, or through the lenses of these digital cameras. Yeah, we happen to see that happening. And then later, symbolically, or through the play of words or concepts, then we do this thing called imparting or giving of this initiation. And so what really happens is you're doing exactly the same thing that I'm doing. And so that's what it's all about, in a way, in the context of this ritual. But what I'm really trying to do, either when I have my eyes closed or semi-closed, is I'm trying to focus on something that really moves me, something that really touches my heart. And that thing, of course, we often name it, it's like naming the two sides of things. On one side we can call that compassion, on the other side we can call it emptiness. Basically the same thing. But we always, since we are used to, as I said, concepts, we like to see two different aspects, two impossible aspects merging or coming in union, let's say. Almost like the two opposites, two complete ironic things. And so that's why you can begin from anywhere. You can begin from the practice of emptiness or meditating on emptiness, or you can begin from meditating on compassion. It doesn't really matter. It depends on the person. It depends on the person's character, personality, and how he or she grew up. And accordingly, how to say, you draw on that experience, and then you rest your mind there. Of course, there are a number of skillful means, such as the visual means, vocal means, and thought processes that goes with it. And through those processes, then it's like catching the wind on your sail, sort of thing. Then you catch it, and then you rest there, and you meditate, and you rest in that state. And once the mind is as clear, as vibrant, and clear, then from that state of mind, then whatever it's emanated, let's say, it can be a simple gesture, it could be a sneeze, once again, it becomes a cause to sort of spark, or as I said yesterday, to melt, how to say, the bodhicitta, and then become awakened. And so therefore, all we need to do really here, during this day, for example, is just relax. We don't need to do anything particularly active. Doesn't require us to focus with frowned eyes, or how to say, put a lot of muscle strain on our body, or to think of something, think of some nonsense or anything like that. All it requires from us is just to be ourselves, relax, and sort of let yourself absorb this blessing.